Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. So we have a special update. We have some intel coming in on a Russian strike that occurred approximately a day and a half ago. We believe this strike may have been conducted late on January 23rd, possibly going into the morning of January 24th. But it appears that Russian forces conducted a missile strike on a target in Kharkov. That strike has supposedly resulted in the death of more than 120 to 150 Ukrainian troops. This is possibly what has led to the shoot-down of that alleged Russian transport aircraft. The Ukrainians apparently became very trigger-happy once this strike took place, both in terms of possible retaliation and trying to get back at the Russians. Now, this strike by the Russians, possibly launched by Iskander, a ballistic missile, hit a hardened barracks facility that the Ukrainians believed the Russians did not know existed. That strike in the city of Kharkov, again, resulted in large-scale death of Ukrainian forces. Now, this has not been the first of these types of strikes. The Ukrainians have been very vigilant in preventing any of this sort of news from getting out to the general public. There have been thousands of Russian missile strikes. There are possibly over 200,000 Ukrainian dead and wounded through the course of the conflict. Again, thousands of missile strikes, hundreds of thousands of killed and wounded. So again, this is just one instance in which this intel is getting out to the general public in terms of what happened and the loss of Ukrainian military personnel lives. Usually when we hear about a series of large-scale Russian missile strikes against Ukrainian targets, we get a very small incremental report on the death of civilians. And usually this isn't a very large number. When the Russians fire 100 cruise missiles at targets throughout Ukraine, and you hear about a dozen Ukrainians, civilians, that may have been killed, that is reported by the Ukrainian state, you know at that point that the Russians are not targeting civilian sites. If 100 Russian cruise missiles and ballistic missiles and kamikaze drones were targeting civilian sectors, the casualty rates would be astronomical. You would be looking at hundreds upon hundreds of Ukrainian civilians killed and wounded in one strike, in one day. But again, a recent strike within the last 48 hours may be cause for ongoing Ukrainian retaliation against sites in Russia, possibly near Belgorod and what have you. But again, 120 to 150 Ukrainian troops killed in this very recent Russian missile attack just in Kharkov. There could be many more in some of these recent Russian missile strikes that are not being reported. So we wanted to get that out, talk about it. Feel free to comment in the comment section as we continue to cover. And as always, have a good day.